Hi there, I'm Aileen, and my own family twisted lies to make me look like a burden, just to protect their own image. They didn't just betray me once. They planned it, nurtured it, and left me stranded when I needed them most. Why would the people who should love you the most turn into your biggest enemies? Before we dive in, tell me, have you ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted deeply? Also, what time are you listening to this, and where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. I'd love to know. The sky hung heavy over Portland, a thick quilt of gray that pressed the cold into my skin. November had arrived with its damp breath, and so had the gathering I'd been dreading. I stood on the front porch, one hand clutching the casserole dish like a lifeline. My heart pounded a hopeful but cautious rhythm as I inhaled the sharp scent of wet leaves. Today was supposed to be about welcoming Jody's new boyfriend, Grant. Another step toward family unity, or so I told myself. The living room buzzed with polite conversation, punctuated by the clink of wine glasses and the occasional forced laugh. Lorraine floated through the room like a shark in pearls, her smile a little too wide, her gaze a little too sharp. I pasted on my best mask and stepped into the current, offering the casserole to Mom, who barely glanced at me before shuffling it toward the kitchen. Grant stood near the fireplace laughing at something Jody whispered. I forced a smile and made my way toward them, feeling the undercurrent of judgment trailing behind me like a shadow. The dinner table groaned under the weight of Mom's signature roast and a dozen side dishes. Conversation turned to careers, a minefield I hadn't anticipated. Jody nudged Grant. "Tell them about the internship you got at Anderson and Bell." He grinned, and the room leaned in. "Big corporate law. It's a stepping stone," he said modestly, though his chest puffed a little. I offered a quiet, "Congratulations," but before I could say more, Lorraine's syrupy voice sliced through the warmth. "It's refreshing to see ambition, isn't it? Not everyone chooses manual labor." Her eyes flicked toward me, the comment dressed as innocence. A ripple of discomfort moved through the room. I laughed softly, pretending I hadn't heard the venom in her words. My HVAC business wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and then some. "HVAC is such necessary work," Lorraine continued, twirling her wine glass. "Of course it's not Ivy League material." The words slid into the air like poison, subtle but unmistakable. I caught the look on Grant's face, a flicker of something. Discomfort? Disgust? Before he masked it with a sip of wine. My stomach twisted. Later, as I cleared plates into the kitchen, I caught a sliver of conversation from the adjacent hallway. "I just think it's important Grant knows," Lorraine's voice carried. "Aileen's work, it's not exactly what prestigious families expect. We wouldn't want to embarrass anyone." Grant's low response was unintelligible, but the damage was done. My cheeks burned as I stood frozen, dish in hand. I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe the wine had loosened her tongue more than usual. But when I returned to the living room, Grant's demeanor was different, colder, polite, but distant. Every laugh felt half-hearted. Every glance slid past me. I clutched my cardigan tighter around my shoulders, retreating into small talk with an aunt I barely remembered. But the damage had rooted itself deep, a weed of doubt growing in the cracks Lorraine had widened. The air grew heavier as the evening wore on. My mind spiraled with old memories. Jody sobbing on my couch during college finals, Mom calling me at 2 a.m. when Dad fell ill. I was the one who showed up. Always. When the plates were cleared and the laughter dwindled into awkward silence, I slipped outside. The night air slapped me awake, sharp and cold. From the porch I heard them, not whispers this time, but clear as broken glass. "She'll never fit in with Grant's parents," Lorraine said. "Can you imagine the embarrassment?" My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a betrayal. And it wasn't just Lorraine. No one had stopped her. The silence of the night stretched around me like smoke. I gripped the railing until my knuckles turned white, fighting the urge to march back inside and demand answers I wasn't sure I wanted. Something inside me shifted. I wasn't just hurt. I was furious. The gray skies over Portland hadn't cleared since that disastrous dinner. A week later, the memory still clung to me like damp wool. I replayed Lorraine's words, the shift in Grant's eyes, the tightening in my chest. Was I overreacting? Had I imagined the disdain? Doubt gnawed at me until even silence became suspicious. Sunday brunch at Perkins Cafe should have been a breath of normalcy. Instead, it felt like walking into an ambush. Jody waved me over with a too bright smile, her hand lingering on Grant's shoulder a little too possessively. The small cafe buzzed with chatter, but at our table, the tension hummed louder. Grant greeted me politely, his handshake lukewarm. There was distance now, thinly veiled behind manners. I forced a grin, trying not to notice how Jody avoided my eyes, how she steered every conversation away from me like I was a pothole on a polished road. I excused myself to the restroom midway through brunch, needing air more than I needed a bathroom break. As I returned, I caught Jody's voice floating through the narrow hallway that led back to the dining area. "Oh, you know," she said breezily to Grant's mother. "We come from a family of professionals, doctors, attorneys, very solid backgrounds." I paused mid-step, blood pounding in my ears. "What about your sister?" Mrs. Ellsworth asked. Jody laughed lightly. "Oh, Aileen's between things right now. She's figuring it out." I stood there stunned, my reflection in the hallway mirror staring back at me, a woman who built a thriving HVAC business from scratch, now reduced to between things because my career wasn't glittery enough for Jody's image. My hands clenched at my sides. Betrayal didn't have to be loud to hurt. Sometimes it was soft, smiling, slipping poison into polite conversation. The rest of brunch blurred. I answered questions on autopilot, feeling the walls of trust I'd spent years building begin to crack. Later that afternoon, as I sat stiffly on my porch staring into the rain, my phone buzzed. It was Sierra, our cousin. "Hey, can I swing by? I think you need to hear something." 15 minutes later, she stood in my living room, her eyes wary. "I wasn't sure if I should—" She hesitated, pulling out her phone. "But you deserve to know." She hit play on a voice memo. Jody's voice filled the room, casual and cutting. "Yeah, I had to make up a few things. I mean, how do you tell people your sister fixes air conditioners for a living? It's just not the image you want when you're trying to make a good impression." I felt the words slice through me, jagged and raw. Not a slip of the tongue, not a misunderstanding. This was deliberate, calculated. Sierra reached out like she might touch my arm, then thought better of it. "I'm sorry, Aileen, I didn't know it was this bad." Neither did I. I nodded stiffly, swallowing the lump rising in my throat. The betrayal wasn't some passing slight. It was a cold, sharp blade, slipped neatly between my ribs by the one person I thought would always have my back. I sat there long after Sierra left, staring at the rain battering against the windows. Shame curdled into something heavier, something hotter, a slow, burning fury. They had rewritten my story without me, turned my hard-won pride into something ugly, something disposable. I gripped the arm of the couch until my knuckles blanched. I wouldn't be their dirty secret anymore. Later, as I drove home through the endless drizzle, my thoughts spiraled faster than the windshield wipers could clear. Each mile fueled my anger, hardened my resolve. Just as I pulled into the driveway, my phone buzzed again. A text from Mom. "Family BBQ next Saturday. Hope you can make it." I stared at the screen, the weight of the last week settling over me like a second skin. For the first time in my life, I hesitated. The mist draped itself over Portland like a second skin that morning, dense and suffocating. I sat alone at my kitchen table, nursing a cold cup of coffee, replaying Sierra's recording in my mind over and over again. Each time Jody's words stabbed a little deeper, splintering the last threads of doubt that maybe, just maybe, I had misunderstood. Loyalty twisted in my gut, clashing against the growing roar of self-respect demanding to be heard. My phone rang, the screen flashing, "Mom." Against better judgment, I answered. "Sweetheart," Lorraine's voice cooed, thick with the kind of forced warmth that set every nerve on edge. Can you swing by the house today? We need to chat. Just you and me. I knew better, but some stubborn shard of hope still flickered. Maybe she understood. Maybe, just once, she would stand with me instead of against me. The house smelled the same, freshly baked cookies masking the staleness of old grievances. Lorraine sat at the dining table, the same one where birthdays had been celebrated, punishments delivered, alliances formed. She smiled thinly as I sat. Aileen, we need to move past this unpleasantness. I kept my face neutral. Which unpleasantness are we talking about? She sighed, as if I were a particularly dense student. Jody didn't mean any harm. Families tell little white lies all the time. You're making it bigger than it needs to be. Bile rose in my throat. I worked my whole life for what I have, I said quietly. And you're asking me to pretend it doesn't matter? You need to be the bigger person, she insisted, voice honeyed but firm. Jody's future is on the line. Grant's family, these people have connections, opportunities. Don't ruin this because of pride. There it was, the betrayal dressed up as wisdom, a cheap costume for cowardice. I'm not the one who lied, I said. Her smile vanished. If you humiliate us publicly, Lorraine said, each word cutting sharper than the last, consider yourself out of this family. No screaming, no dramatic slamming of doors, just the clean, clinical precision of a scalpel separating flesh. I stared at her, seeing not my mother, but a woman who valued polished appearances over flesh and blood. A woman who had always, somehow, loved the idea of a perfect daughter more than the daughter herself. I rose slowly, my chair scraping against the wood floor. Maybe I don't need a family that erases me, I said, voice steady despite the quake beneath my ribs. Lorraine didn't reply. She simply folded her hands and looked past me, as if by sheer will she could unsee my existence. The door clicked shut behind me with a finality that vibrated through my bones. I stood on the porch, the rain thickening into cold, heavy drops that hammered against my skin. Each step away from that house felt like shedding a skin that had grown too tight, too poisoned to bear. This wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. The storm had passed, but the sky outside my office window remained a bruised shade of gray. I stared blankly at the open invoice on my computer screen, the numbers blurring together, refusing to make sense. My phone buzzed against the desk. A message from Jody. Emergency. Can you help? Just this once. I'll explain over coffee. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. Instead, I shoved it into my purse and grabbed my coat. Part of me still clung to hope, that desperate, pathetic part that thought maybe this time it would be different. We met at a small coffee shop tucked between two closed bookstores. Jody looked radiant, cheeks flushed, hair shining, no signs of hardship. She wrapped her hands around her latte, giving me her best wounded doe eyes. It's just been so overwhelming, she sighed dramatically. Some unexpected school fees. I hate to ask, but you're the only one I can turn to. I stirred my coffee slowly, watching the cream spiral and vanish. Didn't your scholarships cover most of it? She laughed nervously. Well, you know how schools are. Hidden charges everywhere. The lie sat between us, thick and rancid. I nodded, pretending to believe her, my heart shrinking tighter in my chest. Later that night, unable to ignore the gnawing feeling, I called the university office under the guise of a concerned relative. The woman on the line confirmed it flatly. Her account is fully paid for the semester, no outstanding balances. The ground shifted beneath me. I clutched the edge of the kitchen counter to keep from sinking. She wasn't struggling. She was exploiting. And I had been the fool footing the bill for her designer bags and weekend getaways. Just when I thought the wound couldn't deepen, Sierra sent me a series of emails she had stumbled across by accident. Lorraine and Jody, strategizing like petty criminals. Keep her feeling guilty. Play the family loyalty card. Don't let her back away too fast. Every word carved another slice into what little remained of my trust. The speeches about unity, about family, rehearsed lies meant to keep me compliant, generous, silent. I reread the emails, my hands shaking, fury rising like a storm surge inside me. They didn't just betray me. They plotted it, engineered it, perfected it. I sat down heavily at my desk, staring at the blinking cursor on my laptop screen. Jody's tuition account was still linked to my credit card, bleeding out monthly payments that now felt like blood money. I hovered over the remove payment method button. My finger trembled. Hesitation, grief, habit, but only for a moment. Click. Done. The rain battered against my windows like an endless drum, each tap a reminder of the cold, hollow space forming inside me. My phone buzzed again, its glow slicing through the dimness of the living room. Sierra's name flashed on the screen. I answered, heart hammering. "Aileen," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I can't keep this to myself anymore." I braced myself, instinctively knowing that whatever she was about to say would splinter what little hope I had left. "I was at Mom's last weekend," she continued, words rushing out like a dam breaking. "Jody," she was talking about you, laughing. "She told Grant's parents you're some small-town labor worker who barely got by. She made you sound pathetic." I closed my eyes, feeling the air squeeze from my lungs. The betrayal sliced deeper than I expected. I had sacrificed weekends, vacations, and paychecks to help Jody build the life she flaunted. And this was how she paid me back, with cheap laughs at my expense. "She didn't just say it once," Sierra added, voice thick with disgust. "She made it a joke, over and over, like she needed to scrub you from her story to make herself shine." I sat down heavily on the edge of the couch, the room spinning. Memories blurred together. Late nights, proofreading Jody's essays, wiring her emergency rent payments, cheering her through every graduation. I had been her safety net, her anchor, and now I was her punchline. "She's not who we thought she was," Sierra whispered. "And I can't do it anymore. I'm done pretending everything's fine." The words hung between us, heavy and raw. For the first time, someone else acknowledged the rot at the heart of our family. "I'm cutting ties," Sierra said, steadier now. "It's toxic. It's not love. It's manipulation." Tears prickled at my eyes, not from sadness, but from a sudden, unexpected swell of gratitude. Sierra wasn't just warning me, she was showing me a way out. "You should think about it too, Aileen," she urged. "You don't have to keep carrying them." After we hung up, I sat alone in the dark, the rain blurring the world outside into a smear of gray. My gaze drifted across the room, settling on the family photo perched atop the fireplace. Smiles frozen in time, masks I once believed were real. Slowly, I crossed the room. My fingers hesitated over the frame, tracing the outlines of faces that now felt like strangers. With a deep breath, I turned the photo face down, the glass thudding softly against the wood. The goodbye was silent, but it echoed louder than any scream. The dim light of my desk lamp barely touched the corners of my modest home office. Everything outside the window was swallowed by darkness, but inside, my decision blazed brighter than anything the night could threaten. I moved the mouse, heart steady, and clicked Remove Payment Method on Jody's university account. One simple action, years in the making, no more silent sacrifices, no more guilt neatly wrapped in the lie of family obligation. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. For the first time in months, a strange lightness unfurled inside me. It wasn't peace exactly, more like a shedding of old chains. I didn't owe them anything anymore. By morning, the storm had broken. My phone buzzed nonstop, screaming into the early daylight. Lorraine's name flashing, Jody's. Even second cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Text after text, guilt heavy in every word. "After all the family has done for you, this is how you repay us? Blood is thicker than pride, Aileen. Or did you forget?" Each message was a blow meant to drive me back into the cage I'd just escaped. They didn't know. The locks were already broken. The group chat exploded before noon. Lorraine, never one to waste time, posted a public blast accusing me of turning my back on the family who raised me. Jody, of course, chimed in with sugary posts about sadly learning not everyone values loyalty, painting herself the wounded martyr. It spread quickly, whispered judgment in the grocery store aisle, lingering looks at the gas station, my own community, swallowing the lies without even tasting them. I sat on the couch, scrolling through the firestorm they'd set. My heart twisted, not because their words held truth, but because of how quickly a lifetime of my loyalty was buried under a handful of curated half-truths. "You can't be serious," I muttered into the thick, stale air of my living room. The betrayal wasn't just personal now, it was strategic. Public. 16 years ago, I'd driven Jody to her first college tour, sacrificing overtime hours just to make sure she had every shot I never did. "You'll make us all proud," Mom had said, smiling only at Jody. The memory twisted tighter. A silent scream roared through me. Grief, anger, regret, all piling into one single certainty. I wouldn't stay quiet anymore. I opened my laptop. The cursor blinked on a blank social media post. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling, not with fear, but with adrenaline. They wanted a public spectacle? Fine. I started typing, each word precise, razor-edged, clean. Not wild accusations, just truths they'd spent years burying. Facts so simple, so undeniable, they wouldn't know where to start dismantling them. At the bottom of the screen, the publish button glowed. I stared at it, breathing hard. One click, and the years of playing the dutiful sister, the forgiving daughter, the silent protector, all of it would burn away. I tightened my jaw. No more erasing myself to protect people who never hesitated to erase me first. I raised my finger, feeling the weight of everything behind me and everything ahead. The bell above the door jingled weakly as I stepped into the cafe downtown. The smell of burnt coffee and damp wool filled the air. Lisa, an old family friend, sat by the window, nervously twisting her napkin. I hadn't seen that kind of pity in someone's eyes directed at me before. She leaned in, whispering like she was afraid the walls had ears. "I thought you should know. There's talk going around Mason's family. About you." I stiffened. "What kind of talk?" Lisa hesitated, her hands trembling slightly. "Jody's been saying things, that you're unstable, that you've mismanaged your finances, and that you're not trustworthy." The words sliced through me faster than any knife. My heart raced so hard it drowned out the murmur of the cafe. Jody wasn't just stabbing me in the back anymore. She was dragging my name through the mud in front of Mason's family, people whose respect I had earned with years of hard work and quiet dignity. I thanked Lisa with a nod I could barely muster and walked out into the blustery wind. Anger boiled under my skin, hotter with each step. The sacrifices, the nights I spent fixing her car so she could get to school, the weekends I gave up to babysit while she networked, none of it mattered. I was a stepping stone she now needed to shatter for her own shine. Back home, the storm only thickened. An email blinked on my laptop screen, summoning me to a family video call. Against every screaming instinct, I clicked the link. Lorraine's face appeared first, steely, composed, the picture of maternal disappointment. Jody's pixelated smirk wasn't far behind. Lorraine wasted no time. "We've decided that future discussions about family inheritance matters will exclude you, Aileen," she said coolly, like reading from a script. "Given your recent choices, it's clear you no longer wish to be part of this family." The word choices hung in the air like poison. No acknowledgement of the years I'd carried them. No gratitude. Just exile. Cold. Complete. Final. Something inside me snapped. I didn't argue. Didn't plead. I simply closed the laptop with a sharp click, their frozen faces blinking out like the end of a bad broadcast. 16 years ago, I stood on a rain-slick driveway, 14 years old, promising myself that someday I'd matter more than the debts others saddled me with. "You owe it to family," Mom had whispered then. "Always family first." That lie dissolved completely now. Fury and heartbreak collided until they became something new. A fierce, crystalline clarity. I opened a blank document. My fingers danced across the keyboard with purpose, drafting a legal letter that would stun them into silence. This wasn't a plea for acceptance. It was a declaration of independence, a severing, sharp and irrevocable. When I finished, I stared at the send button. My hands were steady this time. They had declared war. I was simply finishing it. I sat in the dark, the only light coming from the phone in my hand, the cold final message from Lorraine glowing like a wound. You made your choice, Aileen. You're no longer welcome. I read it again, and again, until something inside me, that stubborn piece that once thought love could fix everything, finally died. The rain beat against my windows like frantic hands. I dragged the old metal box from my closet, the one I hadn't touched since Mom's funeral. Dust choked the air as I opened it. Inside, old emails, yellowed bank statements, forgotten fragments of a time I used to believe was pure. Page after page, the truth unveiled itself, ugly and undeniable. Lorraine had siphoned money from Mom's healthcare fund, rerouting it for family vacations, private shopping sprees, and things she swore she sacrificed for us. The numbers didn't lie. The betrayal wasn't new. It had roots deep and rotting. A memory flared. 16 years ago, I was 16, crouched beside Mom's hospital bed, holding her hand as Lorraine whispered to an aunt how expensive caring for a dying woman was. I thought I'd imagined it. Now it thundered back, cruel and clear. My hands shook, not with fear, but with pure, volcanic rage. They broke the family, not me. They shattered it with every lie, every manipulation. Still, some frail loyalty nagged. Could I really expose this? Would I become the villain in their twisted fairy tale? The answer came swiftly. They had already painted me the villain. Might as well wear the mask they forced on me, but make it real. The ding of an incoming email jerked me out of my spiraling thoughts. It was from Jody. Subject line, "Don't be stupid." I opened it. Attached were fabricated documents, falsified payment records making it seem like I'd been stealing from Dad's small trust fund for years. Her message was sharp and smug. Drop your crusade, or this gets out. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Jody really thought I would fold under pressure, that I would crawl back into silence, humiliated and broken. She didn't know me at all. I forwarded the blackmail email to my lawyer without hesitation, attaching the trove of evidence against Lorraine. I added a note. No more waiting. File everything. They made this choice. Outside, the rain thinned to a cold, steady mist. I stood at the window, breathing in the sharp scent of wet concrete and betrayal. My reflection stared back at me, hollow-eyed but burning from within. They wanted war. They were about to see exactly what that meant. I hit send on the official legal complaint. As the email whooshed into cyberspace, I felt a shudder of release. Not relief. No, this wasn't over. But the leash they had around my throat was finally, irreversibly snapped. This was no longer about revenge. This was survival, on my terms. The courtroom buzzed with a low, restless murmur, the fluorescent lights above casting a sterile glow over everything. I sat rigid, my hands folded in my lap, staring straight ahead as Lorraine took the stand. Her makeup was immaculate, but it couldn't mask the puffiness around her eyes. She gripped the edge of the witness box like a woman clinging to the last shreds of her old life. Her voice cracked on the first word. "I'm so sorry," she whimpered, her gaze darting between the judge and the spectators, the scattered remnants of a family now carved into bitter factions. "I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but everything I did was out of love, out of fear. I didn't know how to ask for help." A few sympathetic murmurs stirred among the older relatives sitting behind me. I felt the weight of their eyes, waiting for me to soften, to cave. Lorraine's tears slipped down her face, her shoulders shaking in delicate tremors that once would have twisted my heart into knots. But not today. Today, the distance between us stretched wider than any courtroom aisle. 16 years ago, I would have believed her, clung to the hope that she meant every word. 16 years ago, when I still thought family was built on loyalty rather than convenience. The judge nodded solemnly, allowing her to step down. Lorraine turned toward me, her tear-streaked face open, pleading. For a long, suffocating moment, the room held its breath. I stood. My voice was steady, cold, and infinitely weary. I appreciate the apology, I said, each syllable deliberate. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean pretending the past didn't happen. Lorraine flinched as if I had slapped her. I will not be returning to the life you offered, a life built on silence, shame, and debts repaid with betrayal. I choose something better. I choose me. The finality in my words sucked the air from the room. Somewhere in the back, someone muttered a curse. Someone else softly clapped. A tiny, fractured sound quickly swallowed by the courtroom's stunned silence. I gathered my things without another glance at Lorraine or the others. Their stares burned into my back as I walked out, each step shedding layers of old pain like cracked skin. Outside, the late afternoon sun hung low, slanting golden across the city skyline. The courthouse doors groaned as they swung shut behind me, sealing that chapter of my life where it belonged, in the past. My phone buzzed in my purse. I pulled it out and frowned at the unfamiliar number flashing across the screen. One new message. This isn't over. A bitter smile tugged at my lips. Maybe not for them. Maybe not yet. But for me, I slid the phone back into my pocket without reading further, my feet already moving, steady and sure. I didn't look back. The past had nothing left for me. Life has a way of teaching us through the deepest cuts, and sometimes the hardest lesson is this. Not everyone you call family deserves a seat at your table. Through all the betrayal, heartbreak, and broken promises, I realized that self-respect is not selfish, it's survival. Forgiveness doesn't mean returning to the same cycle of pain. It means setting yourself free to build something stronger, healthier, and truly yours. If there's one thing I hope you take from my story, it's that you have the right to choose peace over obligation and strength over silence. Standing up for yourself may be lonely at first, but it's the first true step toward real freedom. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved for the sake of your own sanity? What did you learn from it? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Let's support each other. And hey, if this story touched your heart or made you think a little deeper, please hit the like button, leave a comment with number 1 if it resonated, and tell me where you're watching from. If you didn't connect with it, that's okay too. Let me know why and where you're tuning in. Your voice matters here. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next powerful story. Together we're building a space where real stories meet real hearts. See you in the next chapter.